I keep discovering the amazing institutions that are part of QF.
Isn't it a unique ecosystem, this place?
I've never seen something like that, and I wish we could replicate QF.
And then we also know that a lot of our international students, even after their education elsewhere, end up coming back to Qatar, where they stay in Qatar Foundation or they stay in Qatar. It leaves enough of an impact on them that they want to return, they want to be able to contribute and build that loyalty. And I think for us, that's how we want to set ourselves apart, through our alumni.
I can think of the new KF strategy that was launched a few years ago, the different working groups that came as a result of multiversity, right? And the idea of it is, I have these experts, I'm going to bring them together, and we're going to pool all of our resources together. Resources being monetary, like expertise, technical expertise, and how can we work together?
Welcome back to Wise on Air, the show where we talk to the world's leading minds on the future of education. My name is Bassim Hijazi, producer of the show. And today we're hosting a special episode recorded live from the IMQF 30th anniversary celebration that took place in February 2025. In this episode, we welcomed various members of the Qatar Foundation community, from alumni, researchers, directors, and students who joined us in our booth to share their thoughts on the future of education. We explored how the rise of AI intersects with education and the role of the Education City model as a global hub. Our guests also shared their visions for the future of learning and how we can collectively advance education and push innovation forward. We'll hear insights on how Qatar Foundation is leading the way in the region, setting a prime example of globalization in education. We're kicking off the episode with Stavros CEO of WISE, and Elyas Falfoul, Director of Summits and Partnerships.
Good morning, everyone. We're here at IMQF, celebrating 30 years of Qatar Foundation. I'm Stavros Yanuka, CEO of WISE.
And I'm Elyas Falfoul, Director of WISE.
So Elyas, how do you envision technology changing the classroom experience in the next decade?
I do believe we are in a age of transformation. Classroom will be transformed, and I am not sure if we are ready for those changes. However, what I'm excited about potentially is we would have more personalized learning experiences, and that's going to shift completely the experience in a classroom. I think we're going to be able to potentially measure the skill sets of some students and then adapt the learning experience to these kids, to these learners. And I think these two are major things to look out for.
Yeah. So between you and me, we've been at QF and at WISE for an average of 12 years. And we've been talking about classroom transformation and changes in education for about 12 years. And yet not that much has changed in those 12 years. So why do you think this time is going to be different?
I think on average, if you take this only from one angle, yes, things haven't moved very fast. However, you do have some very interesting examples of countries that have made an important shift. I think we could think of China, for example.
Okay.
There is more integration to technology, and we could see the results of that today. There's a work of 10 years happened, and we see a level of results in terms of how they managed to integrate technology in certain cases in STEM education and so on. You could see success stories even in places like Colombia. But it is not generalized. It is not adapted at scale, and I believe this goes back to the idea that education is like an old dinosaur mammoth, very hard to move. We almost need something, almost a crisis to make people believe that we need to integrate better innovation. COVID in this instance happened, and that changes. But even then, things have, we moved few steps forward, and right after we kind of went back to the old ways of teaching and learning. So I'm optimistic, but I think I think we can still find those little examples that makes a difference.
Okay, great. So Elyas is optimistic, and I'm cautiously optimistic or skeptical. This has been a test drive of Wise on Air at IMQF.
Good morning. I am with Safa from HBKU, a master's student, and I am super happy to have this conversation. Safa is from Morocco. I'm from Tunisia. There's a lot of beautiful similarities, and I have a question to start this conversation. In one sentence, Safa, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing education today?
I think the biggest challenge that faces education today is how to make the skills that we are learning in school today compatible with the job market skills that are needed. With the rise of AI, we have jobs that are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. So does our language, education model right now, cope with these changes? Does it not? How can we make them more efficient? How can we, as students, what is our responsibility to try to find or develop and acquire new skills and so on? So there is this new transformative thing, chiefly for older generations and so on, to just cope with the current transformations that are happening in the job market.
Safa, it's interesting that you say that it is your responsibility to adapt as a student, but you're part of a system, you're part of an environment, you're part of a university, you chose a master's degree. How is it your responsibility?
I believe it is my responsibility because the university gives you the resources, and now I think after COVID we have an open access for knowledge, we have an open access for the resources that are being given. However, what is our part to role to learn from these resources and so on? So it is our responsibility. Again, this is something very new where not only the professor gives you everything, but it's also your responsibility to go in and then just have this entire open word and then just throw yourself at it and then learn.
I love the
and
spirit.
then auto learning.
I love the
exactly.
Spirit of agency.
Oh, thank you.
Safa, what? So if you project in the next 5 to 10 years, what are the jobs that are gonna disappear? What are the jobs that are gonna be potentially created?
I believe that there is a very interesting report about it that was published by Davos. Recently. Yes,
Future of
the
jobs.
Future of jobs and the future of skills as well. I believe that there are going to be a lot of jobs in terms of data and data management and things like that. I'm not very quite familiar with these things, but it's a very interesting report.
Mm-hmm.
And other jobs that are going to be just suppressed, jobs right now that are just the kind of jobs that ChatGPT can solve in one prompt. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This kind of things they can just be developed and so on. So it is our responsibility to know that these things are happening.
Yeah.
So it is also our in our vision we should include these transformations and so on. So
do you see, I have a tough question.
Okay.
A last tough question.
Yes,
do you
sure.
see a massive challenge when it comes to the demographic challenges of our region, North Africa, versus Europe, which is Asian population? And how do you, when we think about jobs of the future, right?
Okay.
We have a massive demography in you take North Africa.
Yes.
But you also have this kind of
Definitely.
notion of Asian population in Europe.
Definitely.
How do you see the balance between those youth in our region without jobs, and on the other end you have potentially many jobs, but they don't have the human capacity to fill in these jobs?
I honestly don't see it as a challenge, but I see it as an opportunity. I believe that our countries should be aware that it is also a huge opportunity that we have these kind of labor markets, and then we also have all these youth that are willing to contribute and so on to our economies and so on. One thing that I would like to raise the point is as much as there are many jobs that are disappearing and then many others that are emerging, again, youth should be aware of the current situation, and then we can transform this challenge to an opportunity. I know a lot of people now, and then young people now that have been very successful because they have just we have been very innovative. They have these startups in AI, in health, and then in all of these new emerging trends and so on. So while others, they are still lacking behind. So I think this is where the shift should happen, and then just make everyone one little push to just make make everyone cope with these current transformations and
Fantastic.
and new
Yeah.
horizons. Yes.
No, fantastic analysis.
so much.
Thank you very much, Safa.
Next,
Wishing
thank
you
you.
all the best with your master
Inshallah.
degree.
Thank you so much. Thank
And
you. Happy to
thank
be
you for
here.
being with us at Wise on Air.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
We're back on air with Wise on Air. Thank you very much, everyone. I am with Khadija, a colleague from Higher Education Office. She's from Libya and Canada, have a beautiful experience in education, and I'm here to ask her a few questions. Hi, Khadija.
Hi, Elyas. Thank you
How
for
are
having
you?
me. Good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
This is your first year within Qatar Foundation.
Entering my second year now. Just a
Entering
little
the
over a
second
year. Yep.
All right. Let me ask the first question, which is, in one sentence, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing education today?
The weaponization of education. We see that we're, with the elections in the United States, education has become even more polarized, and it's influenced by those elections. And we already saw many things happen last year with the Gaza encampments, with the exit of Texas A&M, etc. And I think the biggest threat we have and the biggest challenge now is how do we keep education engaged, we keep academic freedom, but at the same time we keep the space protected so that academics and students alike have the ability to express themselves, conduct their research in an open and transparent environment as well.
Are we ready to integrate these new technologies at the pace of their creation?
I think we have to adapt. I think if there is a sector that needs to adapt, it's higher education, and it's ready to adapt given that it works very closely with the RDI sector. So there's much more opportunity for higher education than anyone else to adapt in that way. So I don't think it's a question of can we, but we have to, right? It's the reality of where we are today. And I think that it's not as complicated as we may perceive it to be. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of question on, okay, with AI, how do we manage assignments, etc. But I mean, there are old school ways like examinations that we could go back to. There could be in-person assignments, etc. So I don't think it's as big of a problem as maybe we perceive it to be. And I think also going back to the idea of critical thinking skills, enabling students to use AI with a critical mindset, I think that's also foundational to how we move ahead.
I'm super excited when it comes to the AI technology. I'm super excited when it comes to the personalized learning experience. I think we're able today to measure skill sets. With all of this and what you just shared with us, is higher education threatened by the uncertainty and everything related to the jobs of the futures, in the sense of we see a lot of people questioning the value of the 4 years investment. How do you respond to that?
I think it's the answer is twofold. So yes, the job market has changed significantly, and the onus is on us as higher education to ensure that our programs are continually adapted to meet the demands of the job market, not only in terms of academic offerings, but also in terms of what are our students leaving with beyond the classroom, beyond their grades, what kind of expertise, what kind of skills are they moving on with. So that's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is making sure our students are prepared to engage with the job market. So yes, we need to make sure that they have the skill set from their academic side, but also non-academically they need to be prepared as well.
So I've been 11 years in QF. You've been almost 2 years. I've seen grow this amazing ecosystem. Education City is a unique model. You have, you come here, you have early childhood, schools all the way to universities, higher ed, R&D. How do you think this model, the model of Education City, and what we call the multiversity and multi-university model, influence global education, collaboration, and innovation?
Look, I think this is something I'm very passionate about, because the way Education City was set up was a pioneering model, and it continues to be, even in today's age, it continues to be a pioneering model, and we see a lot of questions being raised on why are there American universities and how does that relationship work and everything. And I think it needs to continue that way. And I think the relationship that we have and the ecosystem we have, it's not just a standalone. It's a symbiotic relationship with Qatar's role on the global stage. and the continued commitment to internationalization, to globalization, and to partnership building. And I think, like I mentioned earlier, like there's an increase in polarization, but that doesn't mean we give up. It means, no, we continue to lead in a way that makes sense. We continue to show that, no, the way that the world moves forward is to move forward together. And I think that's what we're doing. So as much as, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of threat to to the ecosystem we have, it is enduring despite all these challenges, and we need to continue doing that.
Fantastic. Khadija, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Wishing
Elyas,
you
for
all the
having me.
best and many success with the work you do. And thank you for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Elyas, for having me.
My name is Samer Frenji. I am the Director of Transformation and Organization Effectiveness at the Human Capital Department at Qatar Foundation. Joining me today
is Justin Mundy, the Chair of the Earthness Center at the Qatar Foundation.
So today, Justin, I want to ask you a question and we'll have a discussion around it. In one sentence, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing education today?
Ensuring that every girl is educated.
Every girl. Why girls specifically?
I think the world's in a very complicated place and we need to have everybody educated, but so often girls are excluded from education. And in order to have a hope of facing the challenges that we are facing, everybody needs to be educated.
That's very interesting. And when it comes to this part of the world where you see a lot of challenges, whether being related to conflict or climate change and all the other compounded crises, this issue becomes more pronounced. Any thoughts?
It becomes very difficult. So there have been many studies to demonstrate that if you have a lack of nutrition before the age of 5, then your mental health and ability to learn, particularly for boys, is significantly impacted. So that by the time you're 15, there's a very substantial difference in your mental acuity and your ability to not only learn, but your ability to react to situations in a stable way. So lack of nutrition early on in your life not only has significant physical impact, but a very substantial mental impact too.
That's very interesting. So there's a huge role then for countries working in international development or humanitarian aid, but also private sector working in investments to support initiatives that are advancing women in education, and especially girls and little kids. What are your thoughts?
It couldn't be more important. As Tony Blair said in the UK many years ago, education, education, education. We're facing a world where misinformation is becoming very, very, very frequent. To have children who are unable to understand the reality of the world which they are presented with is going to lead to a very substantial problem and instability. So the role of the public and the private sector in ensuring that girls and boys are well educated, able to take wise decisions, and able to discern truth from lies is going to become an increasingly important thing.
So Justin, you're the chair of EarthNA, and EarthNA is all about ecological, geographic, and other forms of sustainability. Investing in education, how will it impact a greener path towards a greener future? Thoughts?
One of the problems we have at the moment is that people tend to think in silos. They don't see the interconnectedness of everything. And what we don't have anymore is the luxury of time. As we are now in a world over 1.5 degrees warming, likely to get to 3.2 degrees by the end of the century, significant issues of food security, water security, and health, particularly nutrition. Having children who are able to see, and young adults who are able to see that the connection between tourism, transport, infrastructure, mental well-being, nutrition are all interconnected, a part of the way of life. This would enable people to take rational decisions in an increasingly irrational world. The other thing is that, of course, as people mature and have children, the ability of parents to provide a stable context for children and to provide education so that the next generation is alert, informed and educated, tolerant and compassionate, those are important things.
Well, thank you very much for your thoughts. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Sama, it's been a great pleasure to be interviewed by you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Asmaa Al-Kawari. I am the Alumni Manager Engagement, part of the higher education team, and I look over the alumni.
Hello, my name is Pilira. I work for the Higher Education Division in Qatar Foundation. I work as a Head of Performance Management and Strategic Planning. So, Asmaa,
Yes.
let's talk about education.
Yeah.
So, what's one skill you believe should be emphasized more in education to prepare students for the future?
I think on top of all the information that they're gathering, maybe one skill that we can uplift is life skills. So coming from a coaching background, I feel like coaching or supporting one to understand themselves, their values, their purpose, why they're doing what they're doing, where they want to go is really important, because once you start addressing this vision of your goals and how to address them, it makes it easier in life. So you're not just focusing on the perspective of getting education or getting your grades, but it's within a bigger purpose. How can I create a difference? How can I create an impact? And it falls beautifully with how you define yourself in life. I think this is one skill that we can add into the education system that really can benefit the students.
So, would you say goal setting?
Goal setting, confidence building, learning your values, your purpose, your beliefs, understanding yourself, how your mind works, how your emotion works, how to express yourself in a very open and confident manner. I think these are really important skills to address.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now my question to you is, in one sentence, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing education today?
Well, that's easy.
What is it?
Access to education, of course.
True.
And access to education at all levels, not only for primary school and secondary school, which I think most people go towards, but higher education as well. And access education that's equitable and inclusive for all, regardless of their abilities or regardless of their financial capacity. I think education should be accessible for everyone.
I think a follow-up question that comes in mind is, if we think about all the development of education today, everyone is looking through AI or technology and how it's changing even the education itself, the education that we know. How do you think it would shape, or how can we benefit from such change in the education system, especially that we're both coming from higher education?
If I could link that to access, actually,
Okay.
AI and technology increases the ability to offer education for people even in their homes.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about infrastructure anymore, like classes not being enough. We can reimagine education. I think COVID, if anything, taught us that education doesn't have to be in the classroom. So when I think of AI and technology, I think access.
All right. Thank you, Pilira.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. Would you please just start by introducing yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. And then normally the best things happen by accident, not being planned. So my name is Ali Ghraib. I'm a professor of electrical engineering at Texas A&M / Hamad bin Khalifa University. I specialize in wireless communications, so I've been doing this for so many years. And I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. So the question that I would like to ask you is related to the future of education. And what for you is the one skill that is needed for the future?
If I had to choose one, it would be critical thinking.
Critical thinking. Mm-hmm.
And critical thinking because it's a versatile tool that it guarantees to some extent the success of the education process regardless of what environment you are put in.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally you adapt to the resources that you have and then you make the best out of the resources that you have, regardless how poor or rich those resources are. And unfortunately in many situations we lack that. We are more of fed information, and then we are expected to memorize this information, and then we just apply it without knowing why, and then without processing it, without reaching our own conclusions, so that we can make use of it in different locations, different environments, different situations.
And do you see today the skills in your students, or do you try to cultivate it in a way or another?
In my courses, in my lectures, I try to do that. And because normally when I teach a subject or a particular concept, I do not just lecture it. I try to start it, or let's say instill some sort of curiosity in the students' minds as to why this is needed as opposed to, this is what it is and then just memorize it. So I normally try to pose the problem or problems that can be solved by understanding that concept. Because if once they understand there's a problem, then automatically they will be looking for solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the solution will be in the form of the concept that I will be presenting.
Mm-hmm.
So like it prepares them to absorb that concept.
So it means that you're also joining the well-being at the same time, because the questioning is also bringing some of the answers.
It's like what if you look at it from that angle, like it's a beautiful process because like normally students, if they are expected to memorize things, it's a torture for them.
Yes.
As opposed to understanding things. And once you understand something, in fact, you'll start liking it. And then in many situations where the things that we really don't like, it's because we don't have enough knowledge about.
Right.
So by understanding things, you start developing curiosity, and then curiosity is the trigger for learning more and then liking the subject and then becoming innovative in that domain. Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me, Ali, you are an accomplished engineer and professor.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me just earlier that you're also a yogi.
Oh.
Can you maybe just tell me what this discipline actually brought you and how actually you would advise students maybe to include this practice or other practices actually to their courses?
I think as human beings, like our potential is not limited to a specific domain. In fact, we have this misconception that to excel in life, we have to focus on one specific thing in our life, which is not true. Because the way I see it is like this. It's a very, maybe, it might sound irrelevant example, but it is a relevant example. So let's say you go to the gym and then you work on your triceps. You just focus on your triceps. What is the analogy to this? That means you're focusing on a specific domain. It could be engineering. Whereas you need to develop as a human being, a strong human being. What do? You have really to incorporate all of your muscle system within your body. And then how do you do that? And then you have to venture out and then start doing different things. And those different things collectively will make you a stronger person. And then your contribution will stand out much better than just focusing on one track in your life.
That's awesome.
For sure.
And I can see also this kind of energy that actually you're shining. So the question is that energy is part of your studies in a way.
Yeah,
and it's also kind of, let's say, the core of the yogi. Can you just give me a kind of relation between those two poles?
Because if I want to speak in or using the terminology of engineering, we are a system, right? And this system produces energy. There is energy in, energy out. So the optimal energy out, if we have this alignment of the energy within us, and the optimal scenario is when the energy is flowing in seamlessly in your body. And then the only way to do that, if you are in alignment with yourself, if you are a whole. And that's why we see it. Like, let's say if you are stressed or if you are nervous or if you are anxious, your performance diminishes.
Mm-hmm.
And so the opposite of that is that there's an alignment between your mind and your heart and your feelings, and this is where your best outcome is going to be, obviously, of course. And then yoga is obviously is a very important thing to do. And from my own experience as a Middle Eastern man, yoga for a Middle Eastern man, it sounds like, not only for girls, not for men. I exercise all the time, but then I never did yoga until I met a friend who introduced me to do something called acro yoga, which is kind of funky things, and in the park. And then that person invited me to start doing yoga twice a week, but I did it just for the social activity. But then a few months into it, I started feeling my resilience to life was much higher, although I did not even believe in it. So the only thing that changed in my life in the past few months at the time was doing yoga regularly. And then this is how I became convinced that this is a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, history. So like I kept doing yoga regularly since then.
So as an engineer, actually you find the balance between those
100%,
two.
100%. Yeah. If you don't have mental, psychological, emotional balance, you can't perform. Or at least you can perform, but you can't perform at your best, for sure.
Thank you very much, Ali,
Yeah, sure.
for all this insightful.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to,
Thank you
to
very
be
much.
here. Thank you.
Denise, welcome to Wise on Air.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. I am very happy to have this very short conversation with you. I've been an admirer of your work. One of the reason, and it's a secret, we're not going to tell it to everybody, we're both Canadian.
Yes, absolutely. And proud Canadians.
Especially today.
Yes.
More than ever.
Yes, absolutely.
We're
united.
We're united. You have been in the world of education. You have a beautiful journey, and now you serve on the board of QF. How did you land here?
How did I land here? In fact, I received a call about 3 years and a half ago, and I was very excited. And I've often asked myself, and I think it's because of my journey in education, and my journey not only domestically but internationally, and that brought me to QF, and I keep discovering the amazing institutions that are part of QF.
Isn't it a unique ecosystem, this place?
I've never seen something like that, and I wish we could replicate QF, and that we could replicate many of its institutions also. It is the envy of the world. And whenever I say to people that I'm part of the QF board, they say, oh my God, how did you manage to do that? And then, of course, they ask me a lot of questions. And what is interesting, I've been coming here for 3 years now, and each time I visit new institutions, meet new people, and it's like if I'm building a puzzle, but the puzzle keeps growing, and I keep being amazed and so proud of QF.
I'm very happy that they made a choice to take you on board of the board of QF. We live in an age of transformation. We have been, impressed with all these new tools, AI, and it is gonna affect the way we learn, the way we teach. I want to hear your insights into how this technology and how these AI tools are gonna, affect the world of education.
So your question is interesting because I really think, as you said, it won't only affect education, it will affect the workplace, the way we play, the way we meet people also. And what I will say is that I encourage everybody to try to use AI. And with respect to education, what I believe will happen, it will open the accessibility to people, and it will allow people to do things but also learn in different ways, adapted to where they are, what they can do. Like I met this young woman, for example, that is part of the QF ecosystem. She is starting a startup, and she invented, using AI, a way to do a game in 3 minutes. She did one for me.
Impressive.
I'm trying to learn Arabic, and I really say trying because I'm serious at it every day, but it's not easy. And within 3 minutes, she had a game for me. And personalized to me. And I learned things that I had no clue, that I had never seen, never heard, and I was quite impressed. The name of the company is KNAR.
And they are with QSTP, if I'm not mistaken, one of the accelerator or the incubator.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And I was quite impressed. And because I've worked so much in education myself, I could see immediately the potential.
Yeah.
And I'm involved in other boards, and now I see how could we introduce this gaming for learning, for the betterness of society, basically.
It's interesting you're mentioning this because it's one of the most, for me, the aspect that I'm excited about when it comes to AI is the personalization of
Yes.
learning,
Yeah.
but also the fact that we're able today to measure skill sets of people.
Absolutely.
Either at a
Yeah.
younger age,
Yeah.
you could measure someone's, capacity to learn languages versus to learn math,
Exactly.
and you can
Yeah.
focus more on the area of weaknesses.
Yeah.
And that for me is a game changer.
Absolutely, you're right. And it's interesting that you say that because last December, I decided to do the retrospective of my year. It was my first year being a startup myself, and I wrote my retrospective. And what happened, I looked at it, and then I decided I'll put it through AI to
Amazing.
see, should I have written it a different way? And one of the suggestions was, okay, you mentioned your highlights, but you didn't say why they were highlights. And one of my questions was also, how can I be more intentional with my time in the next year? And there were suggestions. And then I asked AI. I use Claude as my AI.
So
AI
you're a Claude.
platform. Yes, I am a
I'm
Claude.
ChatGPT and a little bit of
Really?
Gemini. Yeah.
Okay, I like Claude because it's very
Yeah,
factual,
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
hallucinate. And what happened? I asked, okay, if I come back with the new versions of my retrospective, the way it's written, could you tell me, how I'm doing? And it says, no, you will have to tell me what I told you, and then I could. So I thought it was quite interesting.
It is very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself having an AI agent very soon?
In fact, I'm not sure I call it an agent, but more a buddy.
A buddy.
It's like a buddy with whom you can discuss, you can also improve, and that will tell you things that you may not want to hear, but from AI it's okay, because only you and AI knows about it.
I hope your husband will not be too jealous of this buddy.
I don't think so. The first time I used AI, in fact, talking to my husband about AI, he was looking at me and, what are you talking about? And what I did, I said, okay, I will ask AI to write a poem to you. And it was close to Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So I gave some characteristics of my husband. And then
The perfect poem.
Exactly. And then I showed it to him, and then he looked at me, and guess what now? He bought.
He used it now.
He used
He
it.
used it.
And he
You got
bought
him with
the
that
one,
poem.
the one that you pay.
That's amazing. Denise, we are here at I Am QF event,
Yes, yes.
which is today is an important milestone because we are celebrating the 30th anniversary.
Yes.
It is a beautiful journey. This place has a unique ecosystem, as we mentioned earlier. You have early childhood education all the way to higher education, and this all happened in a relatively it's short 30 years.
Yes, absolutely.
Where do you see the next 30 years?
It's a good question.
You're on the board. You have some visibility into the future.
Exactly. In fact, we are having our strat plan at our next board meeting, so I cannot wait to discuss it. But I think what we will need to do is see how we can have an outreach that is even bigger around the world. That's what I think we are there now. Already we have such a credibility. Like I talk to people about WISE, about ERTNA, about Al Mujadila, and people are looking at me, what's this? And so, how can we multiply those ecosystems so that we can also benefit and it can nourish even more QF?
Thank you very much. Thank you very
You're
much for your
welcome.
service to QF, and thank you very much for sharing your experience and for being with us on Wise on Air.
Thank you very much. For me, it's an honor, I have to say, to be on QF and to be involved in its amazing initiatives. Thank you.
So we're going to start actually by introducing yourself.
My name is Marwan Akkari. I'm a labor market economist here at Qatar Foundation. I focus on studies that look at the Qatari labor market through the lens of the alumni of the partner universities of Qatar Foundation.
That's great. Nice to meet you
Nice
and
to meet
welcome
you too.
to
Thank you.
Wise on Air. We were talking just earlier about your research and maybe the gap that you found between education and the job market. Can you maybe just elaborate?
Yeah, of course. I mean, through our study, we looked at several different areas. We looked at, number one, how much their education and their current position in the job market matches, whether it comes in, working in the field that they studied or being in the right seniority level. But another area that we looked at in the study was the skills. So we've done a skills analysis of our graduates, and then also where they see these different skills being needed the most in the Qatar Foundation or in the Qatari labor market. And I think when you mention gaps, that really comes across to me, where we find some of the biggest gaps between what the labor market here in Qatar is looking for and what our graduates have. For example, adaptability right now is, I think, the second or third highest ranked skill that's needed in our labor market. And it's something that we're seeing that gap in, so we're looking to focus more on adaptability, make our graduates more rigid and rough and be able to enter into the labor market. Another place would be in networking and building connections. We find that that's really critical in Qatar and in entering into the labor market in Qatar. So again, looking at areas within our community to develop people's networks, to be able to allow them not only to have their specialty and to have their education, but enter into labor market with knowledge of people, who are the players and how can they get in.
Okay. I can get the networking area, but let's maybe tackle adaptability.
Yes.
What do you mean by this? I mean, could an engineer, for example, be a doctor? That's what we mean, or how do you envisage the adaptability?
It's a very good question. I like that you mentioned engineer, because I studied engineering,
All right.
but I work as a labor market economist at the
Okay.
moment. And I think even in the World Economic Forum's recent study on the future of work, they mention adaptability as one of the most critical skills in the current global labor market. And what do we mean by adaptability? It's that ability to enter into any field and to be able to very quickly understand what are the components of this field, to break it down, to use what your expertise might have been in a way to put to make you special and to put you apart from everyone else. So of course, this reflects a very flexible and a very transformative global labor market. Jobs are changing daily. These very traditional jobs of engineer, doctor, etc. are no longer becoming, they're of course still relevant, but not as relevant. And people are finding that they need to switch over and change to different fields. So part of that adaptability skill package is a lot of other skills. It's being able to very quickly take on new information, to learn new systems, being able to understand the inner workings of a field that you might not have been involved in, and to also use the knowledge and the skills that you've learned in your own field into this completely new field.
I understand. So now if we talk about this, what I understand actually is that you have to bridge somehow between your own experience and skills and the job market or what is requested in this field. So if we talk that, is AI today a helper, or is it maybe something that might add another layer of, let's say, burden, because you still have to master this?
I think the dust has not settled yet on AI. I think we're definitely at a stage where AI is a massive supporter and helper in a lot of people's fields. Where that might lead, we're still not sure, whether AI will have that critical mass to be able to actually take on people's jobs. But right now, I think for someone in the labor market, my advice would be learn to use AI in whatever your field is. Figure out how to understand the latest models, how to prompt, how to use it in your field, how to be able to better yourself and to produce better quality and faster work through AI. In the future, where the economies will go and how that will settle, we still, I think, don't know. But right now, that would be my advice.
I understand. So AI would help us actually personalize a bit maybe our skills, or have like an education that is more tailored made.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. In that sense, do you think that at one point we might be more into niche jobs? Or because if we talk about personalization in a way or another, it's more like about us, about how we can fit in the job market. And then is it something that creates in a way or another a niche, a new niche that can be only relevant to us, or is it also relevant to the market? And how is it can be relevant to the market?
Very good question. The ILO produced, the International Labour Organization, they produced a research 2 years ago on AI, analyzing what type of jobs will be replaced by AI. And they broke down the different elements of a lot of jobs. I think what they found was where jobs are very generic and very general and composed of very iterative same processes, they're the ones that are most at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Where what you speak about, where you're able to build for yourself a niche expertise or a niche capability, that's what brings resilience to the labor market. So having that ability to, okay, even if your job might be clerical, how can I either improve my information, improve my knowledge, or improve my skills in a way that makes me competitive, within my field and makes me a bit more resilient.
I understand. I would like to conclude maybe with one advice. Let's say you have somebody who is now just getting out of high school and is thinking about the university. What would be your advice actually for him or her to choose the right path?
So I'm a bit biased, so I can give advice, but I don't want people to take it in a blanket form. I've always been a believer that building some level of technical expertise early on in your higher education is quite critical. That doesn't mean just go into engineering or go into computer science. Even if you go into arts or go into literature, being able to still understand what are the latest tools being used in whatever that field you're in. And then as you go into your master's, broadening out, going into more general studies, being able to really open up the doors and not just to kind of target yourself and put yourself into one area. Throughout your educational experience, now that as this person is leaving, high school or secondary school, they want to be able to reach the end of their education with as much, both technical capabilities and as much knowledge and as much doors open to them as possible. And you don't want to be closing doors for yourself. So that would be my advice, to start off technical and then to broaden out. Good question. So through our current research that we're conducting, we can see that our alumni are coming from the global south, and they're coming and they're being educated, or a good portion of them are coming from the global south. They're being educated here, but they're also going on to be educated in the global north, going to some of the top universities in the world. And then we also know that a lot of our international students, even after their education elsewhere, end up coming back to Qatar and working in Qatar. So this goes right to the mission of Qatar Foundation, that we want that human capital developed. We want that journey, even if it's a part of their longer educational journey, that part where they stay in Qatar Foundation or they stay in Qatar, it leaves enough of an impact on them that they want to return, they want to be able to contribute and build that loyalty. And I think for us, that's how we want to set ourselves apart, through our alumni, through our graduates, because they're the ones who are going to build the future.
Marwan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Saddam.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Could you please just briefly introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm Saddam Naifer. I'm working for Qatar Foundation IT department.
Thank you very much for joining us,
Thank
Saddam.
you. Thank you.
We were talking about AI.
Yes.
So you said that today there is a huge, there is a revolution actually happening.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you maybe just elaborate a bit?
We just listened to earlier to the presentation for the Qatari AI, which is Fanar.
Fanar, yes.
Fanar, yeah. So this is a good opportunity. We have to take it as an opportunity for Qatar and for Qatar Foundation, and to think more about adjusting or adapting this technology with the regulations and with security, with the security of the data and of what we are getting, what we are going to get as an information from AI should be secure and will not affect our students and our employees here.
I'm happy actually to host an expert in IT, because you mentioned Al-Fanar, and I have a question regarding this. During the presentation, we've heard about the Arabic content in the world of AI and generative AI. So it's very few, it's 0.5% of the overall content is in Arabic. In your opinion, actually, how we can reverse this tendency? How we can make sure that the Arab culture has a say and a place in the world of AI, and especially in generative AI?
in my opinion, it's what Qatar did in this area. It should encourage the other countries as well. It should not stay in the level of only Qatar. Maybe it will go
Regional.
yeah. Maybe in Gulf countries, Arab countries, they need to be more involved in this project. So this will help, to grow the project on overall.
Yeah.
Because as I said, it's required a lot of energy. The AI, why I will back to DeepSeek. Why the shock? Why the reason of that shock happened in the global market in the American AIs, which is the ChatGPT and the other also softwares or other solutions, American solutions, because DeepSeek, it requires less energy. Means when we said less energy, it means less cost. So as I said, more involvement, more engagement, and more funding from energy wise and from financial perspective as well.
I would like to get back to DeepSeek.
Yeah.
Today we have actually kind of confrontation between different, let's say, cultures and civilizations.
Yeah.
So we have one side the Western countries, and we have China with DeepSeek coming.
Yes.
In your opinion, actually, what might this trigger for the future of AI and generative AI?
It's machine learning, and it's when any future AI products will be released in the market, it will be definitely better than the previous one because they are learned from the previous experience. And especially in China, they have the technology, they have the resources, they have the money to do such great things, and they have, the companies who's specialized in the technology, so they have the knowledge to do this. For us in the Arabic world, we have to learn from these experiences, so and try to develop and inspire first from them, and to develop our own way in AI, because what happened in DeepSeek, it's different technology with less cost, so they did the shock. So we have to inspire from this scenario or this experience to do our own shock to the market, to the global market, and to the world of technology.
Thank you very much, Saddam. Really appreciate this time with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Lina?
I'm good.
Nice to meet you
doing?
as well. I'm fine, thank you very much. Just for the audience, could you please just introduce yourself briefly?
Okay, I'm Lina Darwish specifically. I graduated from Georgetown University. My area of research is media and politics. I do generally just international politics in terms of majors, but what I examine a lot is how media plays a huge part in politics. Now I work in MEMAC Ogilvy, and my main client is Qatar Foundation, so I'm always there. And what I essentially do is that I monitor media.
Awesome. So as an alumni and somebody who works in media today, what is your main advice to students to better educate themselves?
Okay. So I'm not going to just look at the literature students here. I'm going to look at everyone. I want you to educate yourself. And education here can come in a lot of forms. If you're an artist, know the sources of the art you're looking at. Know the history of the artist. If you are doing media, then in this case you would look at the outlets that you're reading. Say you're reading something from the BBC. Do you know who funds the BBC? Do you know who are the major donors of the BBC? Do you know what does the BBC want to achieve in writing this? You always need to know who and why is this thing you're reading here? Why does it exist? And how you can take this information and benefit it to your angle so you make a very interesting story. So I would always say research. And research here is, people always think of papers, think of like a long 20-something paper. Research now could be a video documentary on YouTube when you're making a chore. Research could be you listening to a little clip, when you're on your bed and you just came from a very long day. Research is essentially the fact of you reading about this or learning about this. I would say we are very important people for in higher education because we are the youth that these people are always making policies about. So as taking our power, I would believe, and knowing our power, I would always say, just know your sources, always, wherever you are, just know where it came from.
So you have the standard education that's actually been through. coming from
What do you
Georgetown.
mean by standard?
I mean, the university, you go by university, by courses, and you get actually graduation from that.
Yeah.
But apart of that, actually, what other kind of skills you can get from other kind of sources related to education?
Well, I think it depends on your university. So for instance, at Georgetown, Qatar, recently what they've been doing is having conferences. So as a student, you go and participate, let's say in a conference in Peru, something in the United States, something in Italy, something in Spain. And you go as a student to share your perspective. So that's one thing. Going and partaking in conferences, events, symposiums, doing like a little video, submitting it in a festival. If your university allows for sources, always utilize it, because a lot of the times we're paying for this tuition. So I would always say, utilize first thing the sources of the university that they provide. They might give you library access. At that time, try to gather as many sources as you can, because you won't have these sources anymore. If you are, let's say, in like an athletic program, always try to see what they're training you with, see the trainings that they provide. These people in universities, they will have access to like policy experts. They'll have access to people that have so much knowledge. You won't really see them in your day-to-day life. But I would really say that, I mean, to kind of go on the prompt of the future of education, education is no longer traditional, and it is no longer textbook education. Education now, in terms of success, is not just through reading and writing and taking exams. Now you have AI. Now you need to learn how to speak to robots. And AI, again,
Right.
robots like an outdated term, artificial intelligence, if you may. Now you have, all sorts of things, activities, events, hosting events, writing papers, drawing, doing documentaries. Art is, a huge part of education, and it does not have to be something that is traditional. So I would say that use every single thing that you have. It could be an event. It could be, let's say, like joining a student club and then making an event with another thing. It could be you even just going to an animal shelter outside of university. Because now we are trying so hard to be unique. And the thing is, we cannot use the same facets of portraying our uniqueness anymore. As a student, I'm no longer just someone who did this paper, got a 4.0 GPA and did this. That's not how I would be seen in the world anymore. Now, it's, like the ideal person might have a language on the side, might have gone to a few different countries. Maybe they've gone to Sri Lanka and then they've taken a program. Maybe they've done this. And I would say, if you ever feel like it's too much, look at what your university provides. If it doesn't provide enough, ask it to provide more. Ask the administration to provide more. Because that is why they got you here. That is why higher education is higher, right? Because now we are being given responsibility, but we don't know it until we're in the situation.
Yeah, very interesting. You talk about uniqueness, and you talk about AI. So what I see here is like personalized learning or personalized education.
Yeah.
What is your feeling about that?
How do you...
I mean, at one point, actually, when you have all those knowledge, how you can make sure that they will fit the job markets and the labor market?
That's a very interesting question. So one of my very close friends, actually, she's an author, right? So we were having this discussion very recently where she was echoing a similar concern, right? She was telling me, well, now I'm competing with this robot that has taken everyone's information in the world and it can write so beautifully. So how am I going to retain my individuality? And I would say, I'm thinking of what my professor also said. What he essentially said is that we need to see AI as an extension of ourselves. So people, and I believe that it's a bit outdated and it might come from generations that do not fully understand AI yet. They see it as a challenge and not as a tool. AI is a tool. These are essentially things we just need to think of it as like molding clay. Like you have clay in front of you, right? The bigger the clay, it might form a wall. And they're like, well, okay, this is too big, I cannot cross it. But if you ever mold it, start molding it, you're going to understand what the shape even means. And then you might use the shape to show something. So I would apply that and say that you need to learn how to use it. So you find that AI is taking your job, go attend workshops about your field and see how you can use AI to make a command. People that do, let's say, computer science, now AI knows how to do prompts. So we don't have to look just at prompts anymore. Maybe we can look at prompts and data visualization. Now we can kind of look, for me as a literature major, AI is essentially writing really beautifully, more than I can kind of write in, let's say, a month, right? So a lot of the times, I would say that maybe we can make AI summarize information. We don't have to be AI. We do not have to take what AI gives us and become it and make it our identity. Because at the end, we are human. And that is something that's always going to stand out no matter whatever you do. And that's why I would say that AI should not be seen as competition. And I know that sometimes it's hard to kind of apply that in every single field, but I would always say try to utilize it in a way. Try to always know how to use it. It's hard when you don't understand what it is. So watch a video, watch a TikTok. I mean, maybe informed researchers on TikTok, not everyone. Watch small clips of knowing what is the best way to use this for what you do, because at the end of the day, when you graduate, inshallah, and you go to a job, what they're going to look at is how you use this thing. How you are needed as a human and how your brain still matters more. If you make this robot basically write every single thing for you, your brain is not going to be working much. So they're just going to see an AI prompt that they could have for free, you know?
Yeah.
So I would essentially just say, learn how to use it, because at the end of the day, you will be always more important, because, you know, they're still hiring for people for now. Who knows?
Thanks for the wonderful advice, and I appreciate actually having this conversation with you.
I hope it was helpful. It was wonderful seeing you.
And all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Zaina.
Hi.
Thank you
Shahd.
for
How are
being
you?
here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I'll introduce you real quick. Zaina is a public relations officer in the education space.
Yes, I am.
We're really happy you're here with us today. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
In one sentence, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing education today?
One sentence.
One sentence.
Can there be multiple options in the sentence?
طيب, okay.
Okay, you know what? I think in one sentence, the biggest challenge education is facing is not or struggling to keep up with society changing. I think there are so many different aspects to the answer, but because we're in a time or an era of life where everything around us is moving at the speed of light, and education being the bridge between the youth and, let's say, the labor market or like the future generations, it's kind of like that glue piece that's like trying to hold something together, but all the pieces are moving.
That's so true.
Yeah, so I think that's in one sentence, keeping up.
That's so true. I went to pick up my kids from school the other day, so I was there a little early and I was peeking into their classrooms. And honestly, I felt like their classrooms they were doing pretty much what I was doing, like, let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, let's age. But yeah, it hasn't really changed much, even though our world has changed tremendously in this time.
Especially, I have a younger sister, she's 16, and she's taking some of the same subjects I took at GCSEs and A-level. And one of the more dynamic, that you would think, dynamic classes is geography. And she was telling me about her case studies and how her case studies are exactly the same as I did when I graduated 6 years ago. So she was talking to me maybe about the 2004 tsunami in Thailand or Boxing Day earthquake. And I said, it's so strange as technology advances, architecture advances, and the world does, how come the case studies they're learning aren't more relevant to their time and things that they can apply from what they have as they experience in society to what they're learning in school?
100%.
Yeah.
So what do you think, what can happen in education for it to better keep up?
I think being more involved in society. I remember we were having this conversation that to keep up with society, you have to embed yourself within society. So promoting volunteering, promoting getting outside of the classroom, taking trips outside, and keeping up with what the world looks like, and listening to your students and listening to the children and what feedback they have. I think including maybe students into what they are choosing to learn within the confines of their curriculum. I think it's really important. Even teachers have a disconnect of the younger generation. Even I have a disconnect from the younger generation. And as society changes, I think we should really look inwards and see how we can embed what their experience is in what they're teaching or what they're learning.
And also the other thing that I think can complement this isn't just for students to kind of be outside of school and embedded in society, but then maybe also open up schools a bit more so that society can be invited in.
Yes, of course.
To
it's a two-way street,
right?
Yeah, I think it's an exchange of like, I know it sounds cringy, but it's an exchange of knowledge, education, stories. And when children feel empowered to tell their story, they are so much more willing to listen and to kind of take that knowledge in, and giving them that kind of authority and autocracy. I think it's really important. Empowering children makes them more willing to learn.
100%.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Zaina.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here with Fahad Al-Musalmani, the head of policy development at Policy Hub, Qatar Foundation's sort of vantage, seeing everything that's going on in Education City. And I thought it was a good opportunity to ask you about Education City's model and how you think it's influencing the way global education stakeholders and collaboration is happening generally. Like, tell us a bit about EC's model in general, and how does that, from what you're observing in your work, and you were a student as well during your time, so you actually got that personal experience being a student and graduating from EC, and now you work in EC from that vantage point. Tell us a bit about what you're observing from that role.
Sure. So, a bit of background. I graduated from Georgetown 2017, and one of the reasons why I chose to be in Education City is the accessibility to different school of thoughts, which for me I found very relevant to the career path that I wanted to take. Other schools usually offer, yes, you'll have different schools, but ultimately it's the same school of thought. But the fact that you have CMU, VCU, and other of the 8 universities all within a 2-minute walk, let's say it expands your horizon, and it teaches you how to interact with different people who have different mindset and different way of doing things. And if I can think of a concrete example, when I was a student, we were part of an accessibility student club, and what we did is we actually gathered different students from all of Education City with the idea of how can we improve and enhance accessibility, particularly for those with physical disability. And then we were looking at, like, other than the physical space, what can we also do to teach and raise awareness. So that's where, you'd have the CMU people come in with their business mindset. We also had the engineers, right? And I could say that also that model has been adopted to what I currently do in Policy Hub and Qatar Foundation. And the idea is we are a large organization, and traditionally large organizations are vertically structured. Is there a way that we can do it horizontally? Which I'm pretty sure you've probably heard of the phrase multiversity. And the idea of it is, how can I look at an org chart from a horizontal perspective? And the idea is we're all one team, and I should theoretically be able to tap into different resources and different stakeholders with ease. And it's also reciprocated. I should also be accessible and easy to reach for other entities, be it students, be it colleagues, be it faculty. And I've seen that work well with different projects. If I could name the most recent one, QF's participation with COP. We've tried to build like a QF story and a QF, let's say, a theme when attending that international events, and generally international events. So there's a power to looking at different ways of structuring yourself, even if you're a large organization. And I think the model of Education City is a start. The model of having different universities, that's a good start. And we're seeing it expand and being adopted on the day-to-day work. Still figuring it out. We're still getting there. But I think it's an interesting model.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting experiment in the sense that the Education City model is not something that has really been replicated yet to the scale that we're seeing here in Qatar. Or maybe you might know better than me. Is this being replicated right now? In the sense that we're bringing so many universities from different places in one place, and you have this access to that kind of level of diverse expertise. Are we seeing this replicated? And do you see this as sort of influencing the way other education institutions are going to be shaping how they inform and teach people in the future?
In terms of that model, no. You have similar models, but in different fields. So if you think of your science parks and science technology parks, they have that model where, I'm bringing in different companies and different innovators into one pool. But you really don't have that when it comes to education. So that's definitely a start, and that's definitely unique. I'm fairly confident that I'm not aware of a similar model of like an education city-esque model. You'd have like schools that are naturally large and they have different, mini schools within it, but they're still the same school, right? So if you go, Georgetown main campus, the plot of Georgetown, yes, you'd have the McDowell School and you have the SFS school and the other schools, but they're still Georgetown. So in terms of that uniqueness, no, there isn't a model similar to it, especially in the field of education. Other fields, yes, but education, no.
Being able to, as a student, access all these campuses just literally through a 2-minute walk and kind of engage with different lessons and opportunities that are happening across campus. You mentioned that QF is trying to use that, the work you guys are doing at PolySub, you're trying to use that horizontal knowledge to kind of shape and inform your future decision making and how you engage on an international level. Like, how do you see this kind of decision making going forward, like this horizontal approach? Do you see it's yielding results? Do you see it being a potential that can be replicated across the world?
So I think we're still figuring it out how it works, because like what we said earlier, it's a new model, it's unique, it's not the traditional way of doing things, so we're still like figuring out really like the fruits and benefits of it, but I think there's potential for it, and I see it being replicated in other places. But I think the setup has to be clear from the beginning. What's difficult for us is this is a new setup, so it's not like it was already embedded in the previous iterations of QF. Right? It wasn't like QF, this is how we want it to be from the get-go, and you model it accordingly. It kind of grew over time, and it became a new strategy. Like, this is how we want to operate. So you have to kind of break the old traditions and how we used to do things for it to really see the fluidity of it and the smoothness of it. But I think I can think of the new QF strategy that was launched a few years ago, the different working groups that came as a result of multiversity, right? And the idea of it is, I have these experts, I'm going to bring them together, and we're going to pool all of our resources together. Resources being monetary, like expertise, technical expertise, and how can we work together, and how can we like look at one issue in a unified manner.
Well, no, this has been a very interesting and insightful conversation that should be extended potentially. But thank you so much, Fahad, for joining us, and stay tuned to Wise on Air.
Thank you.
It was awesome to be here today at IMQF and to talk with all our colleagues. What was your feeling?
It was very interesting. So I hosted one of the conversations, and I think you've tackled quite a few today. So thank you so much for taking that effort. We had conversations across the spectrum. It was quite interesting to see the unique variety of perspectives and approaches that people are across this ecosystem are actually tackling this issue of how are we going to learn going forward in our future, right? So maybe you can tell me a bit about like some of the opinions you've heard and some of the things that you've heard about today that were interesting.
I mean, from my side, I saw and I felt a lot of optimistic people, and I talked actually to one of them who told me about how we can actually bridge the gap between education and the labor market. So to me it was really insightful to see that skills can be still personalized. AI can help us actually in doing so. And today actually each one of us can build his or her own niche in the labor market. So my feeling was that we can actually personalize our skills. At the same time, we can also adapt those skills to the market. Did you feel the same?
Definitely. From the conversations I was overhearing, as well as the one I had with Fahad personally, I felt that their emphasis from a strategic level, at least when it comes to the QF ecosystem, is that they're really trying to expand this idea of problem solving to be less vertically oriented and approach dealing with like solving some of the global issues we're facing through a horizontal approach. You know, QF has more than like 50 plus entities who are all specialized in various fields, and they're all tackling various issues from very particular niches, combining those and like getting our efforts, combining that effort together to actually make the most of all kinds of perspectives is what I felt like is the main takeaway that I got from, you know, speaking to all the various people who come with different expertise today. So it does paint an optimistic, bright future. I'm looking forward to seeing what's the future of QF. You know, this is the 30th anniversary, and I think there's a bright future ahead. What do
I
you
agree
think?
with you.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the 30th anniversary, as you mentioned, and I would like also to take your insight or feeling about what would be the 30th coming years, actually, and how you can actually see that coming, and which are for you the major changes that might actually occur.
In terms of a general,
yes,
like
in
terms of the world?
Yeah.
So that's a good question. So as the producer of Wise on Air, I've been hearing a lot of different perspectives, and of course we work at Wise, so we hear a lot of this work all the time. And the general impressions I'm always hearing about is generally just schools not being able to keep up with the constant rapid changes of our world. Right now, the hot topic is, of course, you know, technology and artificial intelligence and how it's sort of changing and evolving so rapidly. And schools are just stuck in this sort of system where they're not able to keep up with being able to prepare people to deal with these changes. So that has been a concurrent theme that we've seen throughout the show, throughout the past few years, and especially for the past 2 years. And I think these conversations today kind of show that, yes, this is still the challenge, but there is more hope, there is more optimism, there's more confidence in terms of, at least from the QF ecosystem's perspective, that we can solve these challenges, we can keep human beings at the center, and we can approach it forward from a horizontal approach of like dealing with the challenges of the future. So I'm hoping that we will see that through initiatives like the Education City model and other initiatives we're observing across the world as Wise.
That's right. And to conclude, actually, I would like also to mention a discussion that's unplanned that we have within our advocacy team and Wise in a larger sense, is to really invite EC I would say stakeholders and minds to speak up and tell actually their stories and their insights. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is just a teaser. We got an opportunity to engage with many of you in today's IMQF, but this is an invitation that's extended to everyone in the EC community. We want to hear more from your expertise. We want to get you on the show. Wise on Air is a show about having conversations on the future of education, and who better to have these conversations than the many different people with expertise who are working in this ecosystem. So the invitation is open. Please get in touch, and we'd love to hear from you and talk to you all one-to-one and get to the nitty-gritty of how we can better solve these issues.
I would say this because we are QF. Thank you very much.
Thank you.